Yes, Max.
Hello. Let me try this thing out here. Okay. Good. Let me set up a little bit. Got props one, okay. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Max. Thank you for having me here. I'm a little bit low energy today because I gave it my all in the 2-hour karaoke session yesterday, and my throat is hurting a little bit. I've tested, it's not COVID, so it's fine. I think it's just I sing very hard and Celine Dion really killed me. So just apologize for the lower energy than usual today. My name is Max. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the lyric essay as play. I think today we've talked a lot about games, game design and game development. I'm going to specifically be talking about the action of playing rather than the action of game making. Yeah, and this presentation basically will be divided into like half who I am and half of this topic. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. So, this is me. I write creative nonfiction and poetry. I've been writing since 2018. The story behind that is I was enrolled in this Nyan Poly course called Mass Communication. I wanted to be a journalist, and so I was like, okay, let's try this creative writing class for fun, and basically I never stopped writing after that. I'm currently in Yale and US College, the school that is closing down, as you probably know. I tell people I'm an endangered species, so if you would like to donate to endangered species, you can always support me. And I'm currently tutoring writing in US, so I'm here basically primarily as a writer. Of various things, creative writing primarily, so I do like poetry, non-fiction. I've dabbled a little bit in fiction but not have anything published properly yet. But my previous work experience has been in the newspaper when it was still like a tabloid and not the trash that it is today. And at Ethos Book, so if you know that. And I also used to do marketing for a PUB like subsidiary called the Sustainable Singapore Gallery at Marina Barrage, if you've seen that. So I used to do like marketing for them. Since we are talking about games and game design, here is a list of games I spent way too much time on, including Magic the Gathering. All the Pokemon games, literally all of them. Wingspan for the board gamers, and this sort of like narrative-driven mystery-solving game called Detective City of Angels. It's set in like 1940s LA, and the cool thing about it is that like you can replay the same narrative as a game master. So you can like play as a player, find out who did the murder, and then like replay it but as the game master afterwards. So those are some games I thought were really cool to share. Yeah, so that's me. I recently launched a little book. So she is now a published author. The book is here. It is very cute and tiny. I launched this at the Singapore Writers Festival like 2 weekends ago, and it's already sold out. So I'm waiting for a new shipment of books to come in. So if you want to support me, this book is the way to do it, and I'll have a book launch. There's some details about that later. This is a little chapbook we call A Study in Ourselves. I won this little competition based in the US, so it's actually published by a US-based press called Neon Hemlock Press in Washington, DC. And it's basically the story of how I migrated to Singapore from Thailand when I was young, and the formation of my queer identity as I grew up. So that's the big like, sort of elevator pitch for the book. And here's not the elevator pitch for the book. I'm going to read from it, so you can hear what I've written. So if you want to follow along, there's a QR code on the screen. It's the exact same version of what's inside this book, published online on Chestnut Review. And I'll just read for like 8 minutes, just to get a sense of like the kind of work that I do, since I'm sure most of you are not experienced with personal essays and lyric essays. And then we'll go into like sort of like masterclass situation, and I'll talk a little bit about like what it means to be playing within works like this. Okay, so I'm gonna do the awkward author thing of sitting on a chair and turning to the right page of the book, and then we will read it. For those of you who need the QR code, it's just up there now. Oh, content warning, there's some like genitalia mentioned. There's no sex, but there's genitalia mentioned. Yeah, okay. If you need to leave, please do. Okay, everybody ready? Okay. เข้าใจ, to understand, which also literally means to enter the heart. 1. On 19 December 2028, Max receives a passport from Singapore. The passport is red. It shows a lion and tiger presenting a Singapore crest. The way the two felines longingly gaze forward with their paws gripping the placard reminds Max of the afternoon-long prize-giving ceremonies that they attended. Max had a lot of trouble putting on ties as a 10-year-old. When Max wants to travel, they retrieve the newly minted book from their dresser, where they also keep their underused eyeshadow palettes. Before leaving, Max would flip to the first page to ensure that their face still looks the same as the profile picture taken years before, with their windswept hair shiny, their cheeks plump and red ripe, and their lips slightly curved in an awkward smile. Once, they were a bit self-conscious when the airport staff said, with an undertone of dread, that they've slimmed down, as if Max was already partway out of this world. Max knew the staff did not mean any malice, but they wanted to ensure that anyone who wanted to see them and befriend them could see them for who they were. 2. On 5th April 2018, Max learns the makeup technique known as the contour. Not to be confused with a corset, the contour allows Max to add a shadow to beneath their cheeks to give the illusion that their face is sculpted like a Greek statue. Max does not really want to be associated with Greek statues and their deliberately small penises, but they like how the made-believe shadows appear to embrace their cheeks with a beautiful flesh-toned color. To contour, Max would use a specific brush that is shaped like a shark's tooth to apply a rich brown powder, swiping downwards and blending out, an elegant darkness radiating from an imaginary hollow. Max seems to find themselves physically existing in that space, like an in-between stage of sinking and soaring, going nowhere but having a clear direction. Soon, Max will be fascinated with color again, but for those short days, Max would find themselves immersed in a body of contrasts. 3. On 26 January 2042, Max discovers they have a long-lost twin who migrated to an English-speaking country in his childhood. When Max met him for dinner at a decently pricey Middle Eastern restaurant, Max did not realize the similarities they shared. Despite being identical, he looks nothing like Max. He is about the same height, but stood taller, broad-backed and broad-chested. He got his teeth fixed, so he has a beautiful smile he describes as a lady killer. He has a Southeast Asian wife and fathered 2 beautiful girls from an emotional distance as a computer engineer. He tells Max he wasn't particularly good at math in school, but he found this guy who hooked him up with his first job, and he has been posting on LinkedIn, so he has a somewhat decent career. He's wearing a bomber jacket, white shirt, and tapered jeans, as if he went to an American high school in the 50s and never graduated. His beard grows scruffily around the curvature of his face. Max tells him he never thought the DNA bestowed upon him could have created a human so suited for life in this social planet. They were wrong. The man eats his food slowly, watching Max with a curious gaze as the conversation unfolded, their lives splaying themselves out like a roadmap of missed opportunities. Max tells him that they live in a small apartment with their masculine-presenting partner about 5 kilometers from the ocean. After that night, the two would trade numbers but never speak to each other again. 4. On 10 November 2082, Max would die, surrounded by flowers that would wilt soon after, in a hospital that was not particularly accessible to the people who cared about them. When Max heaves their last breath, the strongest memory that's resurfaced was them dancing to a Dua Lipa song in a giant ballroom, their arms wrapped around their partner as their feet moved, uncoordinated, like flat-footed penguins. Behind them, the disco lights painted the ceiling in a ceremonious rainbow as the music crescendoed to a pause. They kissed. Max remembers the softness of their partner's lips, pressed against theirs, nerves ending smooshed into connectivity like the plugs of a computer. It was probably the sensations of surprise that made Max cherish this memory so dearly. The funeral would be a much sadder occasion. The undertaker would use her delicate fingers to twist Max's lips into a smile, a pretense that Max was happy when they passed on. But Max doesn't mind. There are worse things to worry about. 5. On 6 February 2090, Max's last book is published. It does so badly at the bookstores that the publisher goes bankrupt. 10 years later, a literary critic researching queer literature from the 21st century picks it up and writes a review that makes the book spike in popularity. A larger, more established press reprints the book and earns enough profit to start a literary charity dedicated to developing more queer writers. But they don't. The money is stored digitally in a corporate bank account. 6. On 21st July 1995, Max formed in their mother's stomach. They don't remember much of this moment, obviously, but they would later find out from their mother that the doctor thought they were a girl in the womb because the ultrascan couldn't detect the penis. As a housewarming gift, their parents brought them a pink blanket into their childhood crib in a room that would soon be decorated with cheap stickers bought from a nearby market. Max was always very kind to their mother. Her womb, having suffered 2 miscarriages, must not have been the most comfortable. Apparently, Max would kick much less than other fetuses, as if preserving the passage that allowed them to enter this world. When Max heaved their first breath after the C-section, they had the cry of any regular baby born to middle-aged parents. Ooh-ah, ooh-ah. Max's parents probably believed their child was normal then, as normal as any other children in the infirmary were. Thank you. I know it's a bit unorthodox to do a reading in this thought environment. But yeah, so that's one of my works as part of this book. And I also sort of call it a lyric essay, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means later as we go into sort of the craft section of this talk. So to sort of round up my first part about myself, here are 2 projects that I'm basically working on right now. On the left, you'll see this little journal called Kopi Break Poetry Journal. You can find that on kopibreakpoetry.com. Basically, I'm editing this journal that sends out like 1 poem a week on Friday at 4 p.m. to enjoy with your Kopi break as you wind down for the week. So that's our little marketing pitch for that. And I work with like 2 other co-editors who think about, who we read the submissions together and we decide what goes into the journal. On the right is a new little anthology project I'm very excited to sort of soft announce. Because I literally was on the call talking to the team about it just now, called The Perks of Being Dumped. It's going to be an anthology about heartbreak in Singapore. So if you've ever like been dumped, gone on Tinder dates that were really bad, we encourage you to submit any type of writing or comics for this particular anthology as well. I'm editing the creative nonfiction section, so if you have like really like diary entries that you feel like might be worth publishing, that's quite fun to consider as well. Okay, so that's my plug. Okay, now I go into the part that you're here for, okay, which is the craft talk. Okay, so this is the craft talk. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about play. How do we play, and how do we play within literature or literary works? The first question that I guess I wanted to pose to the group is, what is a lyric essay? I'm sure you've probably never heard of this. Who's heard of the word lyric essay before? Okay, very good. The short answer is it's an essay that's fun. And the way that I sort of explain it is, when you think of essay, you think about like going to university or going to poly, and then, oh my god, I have to write this like 5-page essay that has like 1 introduction and 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion. And then my professor will look at it and then they will give me hopefully an A, and if not, that I will try and beg for more marks. That is the conventional ways of thinking about the essay, but there are a lot of sort of contemporary movements in literary and literary writing where we're trying to like sort of make the essay fun, and as you heard just now, there are ways in which that can really appeal to readers. So yeah. So this is a little like context definition. This is from an anthology called The Lyric Essay as Resistance. I'm going to read a little bit off of it, and just to give you a bit of context, like what I read just now, I would consider a lyric essay, and you can sort of see what that means as I sort of talk about the definition. So I'll quickly read that out loud. While the origins of the lyric essay predate its naming, the most well-known attempt to categorize the form came in 1997 when writers John DeGatta and Deborah Toll noticed a new genre in the submission queue: not quite poetry, not quite narrative. The form between forms seems to ignore the conventions of typical prose writing, such as linear chronology, narrative, and plot, in favor of embracing more liminal styles, moving by association rather than story, dancing around unspoken truths, devolving into a swirling series of digressions. What this sort of really means is the lyric essay sort of is an antithesis to typical ways of thinking about narrative, right? Today we heard many wonderful speakers who think about like narrative in theatre and in D&D campaigns. I'm sort of pushing for a more associative way of thinking. And the reason for that is because when we think of narrative, let me go to the next slide, we have on the left, which is like a D&D campaign by Brendan Lee Mulligan. I wanted to put Brendan Lee Mulligan's face in my slides. And you know, when you go to a D&D campaign, you're always thinking like, okay, there's a DM or Dungeon Master who already has a somewhat of a plan for the plot to appear within the game itself. And so there's already an element of a singular mind sort of controlling the narrative, right? The narrative drive is interesting because when you're playing games, very often like one big drive is like, I want to find out what's going to happen next. And that's also the kind of drive that drives fiction and other kinds of sort of more story-based thinking. The associative drive is very interesting because that's sort of how your mind works, right? Like if you go down today and you want to think about what to have lunch, I'm like, okay, I want to go to those box. And then actually those box are very good laksa. And then the laksa is like the very good one at 138 laksa. And then the laksa also got a lot of coconut. That's the kind of associative thinking that I think we all go through, like every day. And I'm always like very sad when people are like, okay, I definitely want story. I want story to be the main thing. Story is great, story is very sellable, and I love stories, and I love reading fiction, I love playing games that are very narratively driven, like Ace Attorney, and like Detective City of Angels. But I'm also very curious as a person about like, what does it mean to harness this way of thinking where it's all about associations, and then the wisdom that comes from that, right? So what you heard me read is a series basically of like diary entries, fake diary entries, where I'm transported through time in different spaces, and you have the opportunity to sort of see how the threads come together, not through chronology or not through linearity, but rather through the sort of like moving through different parts of one's life. And so that's the kind of thing that I wanted to sort of share a little bit about, like the possibility of the lyric essay within that space. So you can see on the little comic there, it says like random idea to another random idea, it sort of goes back and forth. And that's the kind of associative way of thinking. And it's very fun for brainstorming, especially when you're like in a room, right? And then you're like, okay, here's a chair. The chair is orange. Orange reminds me of NUS because NUS has orange as their brand color, right? And then you go on, and that's how you sort of brainstorm and think about possibility of creating ideas. And then once you have all that out, then you can think about how you package it, right? Usually through a sort of like narrative drive. We want to find out why the chair is orange. Yeah, so that's this slide. So the reason why I'm talking a little bit about lyric essay as play is because I'm sure when you heard me read a little bit, like there's a sense of like, I don't really know what's going to happen next, but I'm excited to find out. But that's not a narrative drive, right? It's like you're not interested to find out what happens to the character. You're interested in finding out how the text is going to continue to surprise you as you go along. And that's why I feel like there's an argument to be made about how the writing is a type of play. I'm thinking about this a lot because I'm Thai, and the idea of play actually doesn't just exist within like, I guess, sorry, let me rephrase that. The idea of play exists everywhere in the Thai language, especially with technology. So when we talk about like using the computer in English, right, we're like, okay, I'm opening up a laptop and I'm going to type. So I'm using the computer for a specific purpose, right? But how many of you have heard like your parents go, don't play computer so long, right? That's how it works in the Thai language, right? So here I basically have play, computer, len, com, right? And that's built into the language. So instead of thinking about computer as a utilitarian or a tool for you to use, you're actually thinking about play, right? When you touch the keyboard, it's already a space of play. When you click the mouse, it's already a space of play. And there's a lot of opportunity for you to use that sort of way of thinking to consider how writing and reading can be an experience of pleasure and play. I'll show you some examples by other writers soon, in the next few slides. So essentially what I'm arguing for is that writing a lyric essay is like playing but on the page, and you will see that very soon. There's 2 points I sort of wanted to make. First is the idea of exploration, right? So we talked a little bit today about like how when we go into games we can explore the world that is being created for you. A piece of writing is almost the same, so you would basically like be able to dive right into what the writer has basically planned for you to explore within the world and see what happens. The other thing that's really interesting is surprise, right? So when you're moving through a literary work, you're always like, okay, so how am I going to be surprised next? Am I going to be surprised by a subversion of a trope? Or am I going to be surprised by a random word that like you just don't expect? So those are some of the ways in which you can think of the lyric essay as a type of play. this is a lyric essay titled Searching for Gwen, very apt for today, because we're searching for Gwen. And it's published in this lyric essay anthology. And basically what it is it's a crossword puzzle. It's a crossword puzzle, and the entire essay is in the clues that you need to find the crossword. I know it's very small, and you probably want to go up and read, but the entire sort of work, this is only an extract. The entire work is about this writer's search for a friend called Gwen. And it's basically the same as like trying to find words inside a crossword puzzle, right? So there's a sense of like crossword puzzle is a type of play, but at the same time you're using that form as a way of interrogating this idea of investigation in searching for a friend. So, okay. Okay. Yes. Very good. Okay. Here's another interesting one. So this is one called Body Wash. Instructions on what can I read? Instructions on surviving homelessness, and it's in the form of a shampoo bottle like label. Right? So we have directions for use. I cannot see from here. Recycle after use, right? And that's, I think, one way in which we can look at literary text in the real world and combine them with a kind of narrative that you want to tell. And that mainly comes from association, right? You'll be like, okay, I see this body wash label, and I have some feeling that like it's related to kind of homelessness. How can I put that together? And that's the kind of work that I try to do, especially with like literary reinvention for a lot of this. So I don't know how much time I have left. I think, yeah, I'm basically almost done already. So here's my next two events, just plug. I'll be doing an event called Introduction to Queer Arts on 16th of December at Pelangi Pride Center, which is a queer library. Feel free to come. You are also invited to the book launch party of this book happening in January when we have more copies available. So if you like the writing you heard today, maybe you can consider getting a copy and coming. But yeah, so that's roughly what I have for today's presentation. I'm happy to take questions. I think that's where I'm at. Okay, thank you. So comfortable sitting in the chair now.
Just now, the thing that you showed, which is the crossword puzzle and the shampoo bottle, the form is called lyrics art, lyrics poet. Like, is it still the same form?
So, the crossword puzzle is in an anthology called A Harp in the Stars, an anthology of lyric essays. I'm happy to share with you. But so maybe I didn't do a very good job of explaining the lyric essay. But basically, the lyric essay is an open form where you can basically like what's the term for it in business? You can put two things together which are different and see what comes out of it, right? I can't remember what the actual business term is. Sorry?
Juxtapose?
No, it's like when you go. It's okay.
Mashup?
Mashup is great. Yeah, so that is definitely one way of thinking about the lyric essay. There are also many other ways of thinking about it. So what I didn't show are like essays that are like only 1 page long, and how that spark can have an impact on you as a reader afterwards. There's also stuff like segmented essays where it's like in parts, and there's an argument that you can say that like this entire book is a whole lyric essay, and you can see sort of what happens inside. There's actually maybe I can show you all, very funny. There's one part in this book that is titled 招牌/拜/ signboard, and it's basically a parody on the Father's Day Come Dumpling Festival sign, where I think it's one of the CCs put out. Like, it's like Father's Day Come Dumpling Festival. I'm like, what if we go longer and we use a lot of the word come for that purpose? So it goes like, you are cordially invited to the annual Daddy Appreciation, come snake stroking, come basement flooding, come eggplant carrying, come public putrid, and goes there for 2 more pages. Until the last line, which is 9th of August 2069. So stuff like that you can sort of like really reinvent the ways that you consider narrative and ways of thinking through things that you find in the real world. I think that's very fun. Yeah.
My brain is going like